Michael Morell is CBS News senior security contributor and former CIA deputy director. Joins us from Washington. How credible is this claim by ISIS to have shot down this plane?
So, Contessa, we don't really know about the credibility of the claim. This is a group that hasn't made a lot of claims, so it's tough to make a judgment about whether they tend to be right or they tend to exaggerate. I think what it's safe to say is I think it's unlikely that a missile brought down this aircraft. The type of missile system you would need to bring down an aircraft flying at 30,000 feet is very sophisticated. It's large. It tends to be fixed or mobile on a truck. The type of surface-to-air missiles that these particular terrorists have tend to be small and simply can't get to that altitude.
Are there other terrorist groups that do have that capability?
No, not really. These are capabilities that large militaries have. I think one of the possibilities, if this is terrorism, is it's less likely that it was a missile and more likely it might have been a bomb on the aircraft. But it's still too early to speculate what brought this thing down. But I doubt it was a missile.
You have a number of airlines that have said they will reroute their flight plans to avoid ISIS territory. Is that essential? Is it necessary? Will it be a factor at all in safety?
So I think it's just the prudent thing to do, right? We don't know what brought the aircraft down. And as long as we don't know, I think it's just prudent for airlines to just move their flight paths, away from the Sinai until we figure it out.
This has been devastating for Russians to look at this and to know that young families on vacation trying to do so in an inexpensive way have seen their lives cut tragically short. And Russians now are saying, we were worried as soon as Vladimir Putin decided to start bombing Syria that there would be repercussions. Is there any hint of truth that that might be the case, that this might be retaliation?
So I'd say two things, Contessa. One is there's no doubt that once the Russians got involved in Syria in a significant way, that they were going to increasingly draw the attention of ISIS. And I would suspect to see more attacks in Russia, similar to the kind of attacks we've seen in the West, right, in Western Europe and Australia, the United States. I think that's going to happen. I think that it's way too early to say in this case that that's what happened here. It is much more likely that this plane was brought down by mechanical structural failure than by terrorism. But again, too early to say.
All right. And so what role will the United States have in investigating this crash?
Probably limited. This will be largely the Egyptians and the Russians. We may be asked for some assistance, but given that it's the Russians, I doubt it. So probably a very limited role.
Mike, this week we saw some extremely compelling video when U.S. Special Operations Forces went in to support a Kurdish operation to free captives who were being held by ISIS, who were facing execution. And unfortunately, we lost a member of the American team. But we heard from the Defense Secretary that we're likely to see more special ops happening. Is that likely to be the turning point in gaining the upper hand against ISIS?
So, Contessa, the big news on Friday was the president announcing that he was putting U.S. Special Forces troops into northern Syria to support the Syrian Kurds who are fighting ISIS. And I do think that it could make a big difference. One of the things we've learned over time in history is when we use special forces to support guys fighting on the ground, we can make them better tactically. We can make them better strategically. We can make them more effective. That's what we've already seen in Iraq, and now I think we're going to see that in Syria. So I think this is a positive step.
Mike Morell, so good of you to speak with us. Thank you.
Great to be with you, Contessa.